Yeah, so we're live. I'm with Alex again. How's it going, Alex?
It's pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I had a busy day. I did a stream and then I went to a vaccine passport protest here in Montreal, and then I came home and I
Yeah, I
edited
saw
my.
your stream last night.
Oh, you
Well,
did?
for me it was last night. It was like I
Ah,
stayed up
okay.
till like 2 a.m. I watched like maybe I don't know how long it went for. I watched some of it.
Okay. I forgot about the time zone thing. Yeah. You're in the morning. Hold on. Are you in the morning now? 10 a.m.?
Yeah, it's 10 for me now. I got up at 8, so we're
Cool.
doing good.
That's good. So you got the full day ahead of you. So let's jump right in because I don't have a lot of time. I'm gonna do maybe an hour tonight. So let's
Yeah.
jump right into the topics that interest you most. Have you thought about what we said last time and maybe some areas you wanted to explore, or maybe some new topics that pertain to philosophy, religion, theology, whatever? It's up to you.
Yeah. So I did just write down this like little thing. It was basically how I think like the reasonable proof to reach Christianity.
Okay.
It's like first you have to demonstrate that a God exists,
Yes.
then that it's Yahweh, then that
Yes.
Jesus was real and was the child of God or was God. I don't really understand the relationship there. And then for any denomination, you have to demonstrate that yours is the correct one. You can use
Yep.
the Bible if you've already demonstrated all the other three. Um,
I say
I
I say that you cannot use the Bible unless you have a religion that is infallible, because it's the church that gave us the Bible, and you can't get an
okay,
infallible product from a fallible source. So that's why I'm Catholic, because I believe, and this is what the church teaches, that the church is divine. It's partly divine, partly human, just like Jesus Christ. It's an extension of the incarnation. So the God man is perfect and he's infallible, and he gave his church some of his infallibility. He protects the church from teaching error concerning faith and morals when it's done in a very particular way. And so the church is able, when it meets in ecumenical councils, for example, that's not the only way, but that's the main way, where infallible truths can be discovered. And one of those truths is the canon of Scripture. So the Protestants don't have that. They just say, "Well, it's self-evident. Look, it says right in the Bible that it's, that it is what it is." Well, I could write a book right now that tells, "Hey, this book is infallible. God spoke to me," and all the arguments that
mhm,
the atheists use against any Christian, the Catholics can use against any non-Catholic Christian.
mhm. Um, yeah. So sorry, I'll pause. I
Pause.
also
You should pause while you slowly convert to Catholicism. We'll give you all the time you need.
no, I'm good, thank you. Um, so I wrote a little deductive argument that I consider an argument against the Christian God.
Okay.
I wonder what you think of it. I've heard of it before, but I haven't heard of it having a name, so
Okay.
it's unnamed. Essentially, it is premise one: the Christian God, if he exists, would want me to know of his existence.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, that's great. Premise two: the Christian God, who is presumably all knowing,
Yes.
um, would then know what would be necessary to alert me of his existence.
Yes.
Okay, premise three: sufficient evidence is not yet presented to alert me of his existence.
I disagree.
Okay, but I am not alerted to his existence, and
Yeah, by
in my
choice.
well, I am not convinced. I'm not even convinced that being convinced is in and of itself a choice. I mean, either something makes sense to you or it doesn't, right? I know it's a bit of a
Yeah.
word salad, but
Yeah. The thing is that you can go on the internet and Google difficult riddles for children or whatever, right? And you can
yeah.
you can sort them from easiest to hardest, and you can start with the easy ones. It's like, this is not difficult, and you can go your way through the list, and then you can get to one where it's like, wow, this is for children. Are you sure? Like, I mean, okay, for you, you're only 16. I'm 51. So
Yep.
it'd be more embarrassing in my case because, like, I mean, these are for children, and I'm stumbling on number 38 of 100. So
Mhm.
at that point, what you do is you say, well, I can't figure it out quickly and easily like I did with all the other 37 that I just went through this top 100 list. So what I'm going to have to do, if I choose to, I've got other things to do, right? But if I choose to, I could give this one just a little bit more effort. Like maybe after I've eaten dinner and I'm less stressed out from work and I'm more relaxed, put some music on, get comfortable, and I'll really give it a good thinking through. Okay, and then that gets me through the next 20, and then I'm on number 59, and this one really stumps me for weeks, and I just say, look, I'm gonna need to get out a pencil and paper and work this out. So there are different ways of being convinced of something or figuring something out. Sometimes it's almost self-evident, too easy, boring. Sometimes it's a little bit challenging. You have to make time to think it through, and sometimes you really need to draw on some resources, maybe get a hint or a cheat. Like I've played some video games, and often, it's easy for, maybe a young person to figure out the puzzle. But for me, I just can't figure it out. So I go and look on a cheat online. And, or a hint, spoiler alert or whatever you want to call it. So there are different scenarios, like in terms of like how much effort are you going to put into solving the quote unquote mystery or the puzzle or the riddle, right? Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's the old maxim where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm married, and sometimes my wife has a problem and she's frustrated and angry, and I ask, why are you frustrated and angry? Like, that's 2 blocks of wood and you want to put them together in a certain configuration, and the pieces of wood are stupid and inert. You have a brain and you have creativity. You're an artist, so I know you have creativity. So solve the problem. But then there's just the sort of despair and the frustration, and I'm exaggerating just to make my point. But it's often the case that I will say, look, I'm a human being. I have intelligence, creativity, and free will, and these blocks of wood are nothing. Like, I'm gonna win this challenge, right? So then I get to work and I solve the problem, and it's that indomitable spirit of I will conquer this challenge that I bring to a lot of practical problems that need to be solved for my wife, because I love her. I want to solve her problems. And even for myself, it's fun. It's fun when you have a problem at work, or when you have a problem in just in life generally. It's fun to say, this is challenging, but I am superior in my essence, in my nature, in my substance. I am superior to this plumbing problem or to this whatever it might be, whatever practical problem that you're facing. Now, if the problem is an interpersonal problem, like this person annoys me, their habits bother me, that is a completely different question, because then you have will versus will, and there are evasions that people can use to avoid being corrected and fixed and all that sort of thing. And it's rude to try to fix a human being, usually, in most circumstances. It's even rude. So
yeah, I think I get what you mean. I kind of disagree, but I don't really want to stay on this topic in particular for too long. So one thing that you did bring up last time was Anselm's ontological argument.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give my kind of quote unquote refutation.
Sure.
So I don't remember who it was. So I proposed the idea of the most Dumbledorian Dumbledore.
Okay.
And then you pointed out that was actually proposed at the time by like another philosopher at the time, and Anselm defended it, I think, by basically saying that God is a contingent being and the most perfect island is not.
No, the other way around. The island is contingent and God is not contingent. God is...
Okay, maybe I'm using the word contingent here wrong, but basically God necessarily exists and the island does not.
Yeah, contingent and necessary are opposites.
Read the definition. Yes, okay, right. Contingent means dependent on.
Yeah.
So God is incontingent.
He's independent or necessary, not contingent. Yeah.
Right. So first of all, I feel like Anselm's solution devolved to a version of the Kalam cosmological argument, or it devolved to a version of a cosmological argument, which basically says that God necessarily exists. Usually this is achieved with the idea of you follow all the causes back and you get a first cause.
Yeah.
Which I'm not necessarily convinced is the case, but we can get into that later.
Sure.
So the other thing is that existence is not a property that something has. Like you can't just assign existence to an idea and make it real. It's like if I were to propose the idea of a realicorn, which is a unicorn that exists, if you have a fully understanding of a realicorn, by Anselm's logic, it should exist. Because I've then added definition to the I've added the existence to the definition of the realicorn.
Yeah, but contingent beings by definition are, wait for it, contingent.
Yes.
Right? They're
But
not
like
necessary.
I said,
They're not necessary. They're not necessary.
I don't believe that that God is incontingent to begin with.
Okay, let's before we go any further with contingent things being necessary and contingent things being defined into existence in this sort of silly nonsense, let's talk about the three ways Spinoza talked about this. I don't know if you're a fan of Spinoza, if you've read Spinoza.
I haven't read any philosophy really.
Okay, it's something to look forward to. You're gonna enjoy. I think you will enjoy Spinoza. Very logical. He's wrong about a lot of stuff, but he was a pantheist, and I mean, I'm using the word pantheist in a very loose way. He might be some subcategory of pantheism, like panentheism and all this sort of thing. I don't, can't sort all that out right now, but he said famously that there are only three ways that a being, and by being I don't mean a sentient being, I mean any being, like a rock, a block of wood or whatever, something that exists, right? Something that can be. There are three ways that a being cannot exist, okay? The three ways are, it has not yet been brought into existence by another. So I work in construction, and architects design and builders build, and then before you know it, boom, there's a building. There was nothing there before, just a hole in the ground. Now we've got this shiny new building. Wow. How did that happen? Well, it was caused to come into being, okay, through, first of all, the mind of the architect, his creativity and his imagination, and all the workers and so on and so forth. Okay. But basically, the reason it did not exist yesterday and it does exist however many months or years later is because it did not exist. When it did not exist because it had not yet been brought into being. The second way of not existing is that it was destroyed by a being or beings. So that same building, if you fast forward 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is, depending on what kind of building it was and how solid it was, we will say that it has been demolished for different reasons, whether infestation of some sort or some sort of structural damage, or just some rich guy wanted to put something better there. So the demolition crew, or the city planner that hires the demolition crew, or the rich guy that hires the demolition crew, or whatever, this set of beings destroyed the building. So it doesn't exist now because it no longer exists. It was taken out of existence. The third way of not existing, and this completes all of this exhausts all of the possibilities of how something cannot exist. The third way is that it's simply impossible. It's logically impossible for such a thing to exist, such as a square circle or a unicorn is not impossible. I believe that unicorns are possible, and I think unicorns probably exist.
I mean, rhinos are kind of like unicorns, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think they have two. There's a little mini one. Not that familiar with. I think they have a big one and then a little one. But anyway, that's beside the point. I don't think it's that miraculous to see a unicorn. So now what Spinoza said is that as a logical consequence of this fact, and I would challenge you and anyone listening to refute his argument. His argument is that there is no other way to not exist, and therefore, if it is possible for God to exist, he necessarily exists. So if someone says, well, I'm agnostic, I don't believe in God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's not, then you are, whether you like it or not, you are a de facto monotheist. Okay, that's the sad reality. If you're an agnostic, let me say that again. If you're an agnostic and you say, well, I don't know if there's a God, I don't believe there's a God, but maybe there's a God, maybe not, I don't know, I'm not going to commit. Well, you are a de facto monotheist.
How do you get there? I mean,
because God cannot be brought into existence, he cannot be brought out of existence. The only way for God to not exist is if it's impossible for God to exist. And if you want to say,
Or maybe he
if you,
just doesn't exist.
because the only way he cannot exist is if it's impossible for him not to exist. If it's possible for him to exist, then he necessarily exists. Because there are only three ways to not exist. One is you haven't been brought into existence. The second is that you have not been destroyed. And the third is that it's logically impossible. Well, the first two don't apply to God by definition.
Okay, so if I just let's put it this way: if the mouse, let's take the kind of evolutionary example that I would propose. I know you don't necessarily believe in evolution and all that, but let's.
Sure.
This is
Play
just
along.
for the sake of argument.
I'll play along.
So like let's imagine that a mouse never evolved, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's to say that the I guess I see your point, but
Welcome to monotheism, my friend.
no, you're wrong.
Congratulations.
That just ain't it. Wait, I'm gonna need to write this down because like my thoughts go everywhere.
Yeah, write it down. Well, you don't need to write it down because it's on YouTube now.
That's true, but I just want to like look at it right now.
Sure. Okay. Sure.
Something to not exist. One, it hasn't been created. Two, it hasn't been what is it? Like two, it has been destroyed or something?
Yeah, it's already been destroyed, yeah.
Or three, it
Logically
can't
impossible.
exist.
Logically impossible.
Right.
So we can leave God out of this. We can leave God out of this, and we could just simply say, as a philosopher, let's say that you and I sit down, we're both atheists.
Mm-hmm.
Hardcore atheists. We're not even have the slightest doubt that God doesn't exist. We're convinced 100%. It's not possible that God exists, okay? So we're not even going to talk about God. Doesn't exist, okay? So we're sitting down, we're having a beer, and we're just talking about ideas and philosophy, and I say to you, Spinoza said there are only three ways for something to not exist. Hasn't been created yet, it's already been destroyed, or it's logically impossible. So what if I were to propose to you the existence of a being that cannot be created or destroyed? What would you say about that being, this hypothetical being? What would you say about it?
I would say that you've snuck in definitions to make it exist.
Well, if it's no, but if look, a square circle cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. You agree?
I mean, only because it's logically impossible.
Right. So just because I say to you, wow, let's imagine something that can be neither created nor destroyed. The conclusion is not that the conclusion is not that it exists. The conclusion, the only rational conclusion, is that it cannot exist if it's logically impossible. But if it is possible, it necessarily exists. That's the only thing you can say philosophically, leaving aside the question of God.
I am not necessarily convinced of that because like I could propose to you a million different beings.
Try one. Try one.
Okay. I'm gonna need to like think of like a really good example here. But like okay, I could just propose to you, right? A version of Dumbledore that can't be created and can't be destroyed.
Okay.
Like let's just imagine for a second that those are definitions of Dumbledore.
Let's say
Dumbledore is not inherently logically impossible. Does this mean Dumbledore is real?
Let me just set the stage for our conversation. For the sake of this hypothetical discussion, you're going to pretend to firmly believe that Dumbledore cannot be created or destroyed, and I'm going to just sort of be talking to you about this. It's not your God, but it's just this thing you believe in, right? Okay, so we're gonna discuss it in the context that for whatever reason you've come to believe in this Dumbledore, and you come to believe that it can be neither created nor destroyed for whatever reasons. You have your reasons, okay? So the discussion basically would be, from me as a monotheist, what I would ask you, the first question I would ask you about your beloved Dumbledore
Yep.
is Dumbledore self-existent? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is Dumbledore necessary or contingent?
Necessary.
Is Dumbledore infinite in every perfection that it's better to have than not to have?
That's not relevant.
Okay.
I mean,
Dumbledore
it seems to me like by asking that question, you're moving back to the ontological argument, right?
I'm just asking you about Dumbledore. Don't get defensive.
Okay, sure.
Don't
like
get defensive. Is Dumbledore
is not
omnipotent?
infinite.
Is Dumbledore omnipotent?
I mean, he seems that way in the books, but no.
Okay, if he's not omnipotent, then it's possible that he doesn't exist. He's because if you said that he's necessary, he's not contingent, right? So you've contradicted yourself. So you basically, Dumbledore is a square circle, because what you've said is that there is a necessary being who is self-existent, but he's not omnipotent. That entails a contradiction. Just like saying a square circle.
No.
Because we know, using pure reason, we know the attribute. We know many, not all, but we know many of the attributes of the one and only uncaused, what do we say? The self-existent being, the one and only self-existent being. You've admitted that Dumbledore. No, but we didn't say prime mover. We just said, I asked you, is he...
so why does something need to be omnipotent for it to be self-existent?
Because the nature of self-existence,
of which we have no benchmark.
No, but we use pure reason. We're not putting objects under a microscope.
I'm just wondering,
using pure
what
reason.
is the pure reason here? Like, is it deductive, like premises and conclusion?
Yeah. If we start with Dumbledore and we say Dumbledore is a necessary being, not contingent.
Mm-hmm. So Dumbledore must exist.
Well, yeah, he exists. He exists just with the fact that he's a necessary being. Never mind the other questions I asked. Is he this? Is he that? Okay, we could just start with the fact that you think that Dumbledore is a necessary existence. Just with that one fact.
Mm-hmm.
We know that because he's necessary, his being is necessary. He has his existence of himself, not of another. Mm-hmm. He is not contingent. And because he's not contingent, he's not subject to change. Yes. And he's not material, because all material is subject to change. He's also not composite. He's not comprised of parts, because only the contingent is comprised of parts, and all of the contingent is necessarily comprised of parts. Composite. Okay? Essence and accidents. I don't know if you're familiar with essence and accidents, that distinction. But the necessary being, we know that his essence is existence, and we know that he has no accidents. We know this because he is pure actuality. We can derive all of this using pure reason without recourse to faith or revelation or the microscope or any laboratory. We can use, this is called natural theology. It's been going on for thousands of years. You just need to start reading the history of Western philosophy. When I was an atheist, I read the history of Western philosophy, and by the time I got to René Descartes, I went from hardcore atheistic Satanist to monotheist. Why? Because that's the conclusion of natural theology, aka philosophy, metaphysics. So I suggest you keep digging, keep reading, and read the history of Western philosophy. And you're going to see a thread, a golden thread, in terms of ontology, first and foremost, metaphysics, and of course, epistemology is wrapped up with all of that. So it's just going to be a wonderful journey. I hope that I get to be there, as your friend along the way, and we can email each other, and you can come on my show and we can talk about it. But you have a wonderful voyage ahead of you in terms of discovering ideas. I'm not expecting you to blast through the Western history of Western philosophy and then phone me next week and say, no, I'm Catholic. I don't expect that to happen. It took me 25 years. Okay. But it's a wonderful journey. And if you love the truth, like I said to you last time, if you do love the truth and you're seeking the truth, you will find the truth. It's guaranteed.
Okay. Just one more thing on the ontological argument. The definition of greater is not necessarily defined, and if I was to define it, it
Have
would
you read
not
it?
lead
Have
me.
you read it? Have you read Anselm?
The ontological argument. I've only ever seen like the argument in and of itself.
Summary. You've seen the summary of it.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
well,
just like the short version with I think it's 6 statements.
You would need to read it and learn about the distinction between a pure perfection and an
Right,
impure perfection. You need to learn about the, because
I
it's all
don't
about.
necessarily need to know what his definition of greater is to believe that it can't lead to the Christian God.
Well, we
Because
were just discussing Dumbledore is the Christian God. Dumbledore, that necessary being. Like,
To wrap this back all the way to where we started,
Sure.
With the ontological argument, it says we cannot imagine something that is greater than God, right? Now, here God is just being defined as a maximally great being.
well,
But to me, I could imagine something greater than the Christian God, which means that if the ontological argument was correct, it would actually get rid of the idea of a Christian God.
okay, I'm happy to grant, for the sake of argument, that the God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as interpreted by Alex in 2021, that God is a fake God. He's an asshole, and you're morally superior to him. I'm willing to grant that for the sake of argument. Okay? Why? Because your interpretation is based on a whole bunch of flawed assumptions. Only when you're a monotheist, only when you understand who and what the uncaused first cause is, that than which nothing greater can be perceived, only when you grasp that, can you say, I want to worship this God. Not only do I want to worship this God, but I have to worship this God. It's my human nature now coming to light and to fruition, and to worship God is the highest. It's the first commandment, and it's the only commandment, and it manifests itself in the love of God and the love of neighbor, because the nature of God is love, and he created his creatures out of love. So all of this to say, I just want to finish up here, that we can grant that asshole in the Bible is a demon for now, okay, until such time as you are a monotheist. And then you can phone me up and say, oh my God, I'm in love with David, I'm in love with your God, and I know it's the same God, but why, when I read the Bible, did he seem like an asshole? And I'll say, well, he seemed like an asshole to me when I was an atheist, and then once I realized who and what the uncaused first cause was, I had suddenly this supernatural gift of faith. My eyes were opened, I got all these graces, and so on and so forth. But you're not ready to hear any of that right now.
Okay.
End of rant.
Okay, so so here's the thing. I am willing to grant, for the sake of argument, right? Just for the sake of argument, that the ontological argument is correct, right?
Okay.
So this leads us to a greatest possible being, and that being God, which would, in theory, if it was greatest possible being, it would be timeless, spaceless, personal, existent would be one of those.
Well, you just said existence is not an attribute, so
right. Like I said, I'm
agree with you.
granting this for the sake of argument.
No, but no Catholic worth his salt will claim that existence is an attribute. You can't smuggle that in and then accuse me of it later, because I don't accept that.
I'm not. This is not what the argument's focused on.
Okay.
Let's just assume that this does prove the existence of a God.
Okay. Well, there's no a God, it's the God.
Right, sure. This proves the existence of the God, and this God is the greatest possible being. Mm-hmm. So here's where the issue comes in. The God, as defined particularly by the Old Testament, is a vitriolic creature with jealousy and hatred to no end. Which means, therefore, if this God were to exist, even if it's described in the Bible is describing it poorly, and if that's the case, we can't use the Bible as a reliable source to determine what this God wants.
I agree with you. I've already granted you that. We can't have a Bible without an infallible church. And you can't believe in an infallible church if you're not a monotheist. You're putting the cart ahead of the
So
horse.
how no, but is the church not based on the idea that Jesus was real?
Of course, of course, of course. If
And
Jesus was
Jesus,
not
the
real, then
idea that Jesus was real, in my mind, seems to be predicated on the idea that at least some parts of the Bible are correct. But I'm questioning those parts of the Bible.
yeah. Well, when I was an atheist, I questioned the Bible just like you do. I made fun of it. I thought it was stupid. But there's like I said, there are steps that need to be taken. Step one, become a monotheist. How do you do that? Pure reason, no need of any holy books whatsoever, right? You can believe, as I did, that God, the God of the Bible, is an asshole, and that the Catholic Church is the most corrupt institution that ever was. They're a bunch of greedy perverts. Okay, you can believe that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you can believe that just as I did.
Mm-hmm.
But once you understand who and what this one and only necessary being is, then you understand that, okay, the Jews are wrong about many things, but they're right that there's one God, the one necessary being. The Christians are wrong about many things, but they're right about the fact that there's this uncaused first cause. And the Muslims are wrong about many things, but they're right about the fact that there is that than which nothing greater can be conceived, and they call him Allah. And we in the Christian church call him Allah in the Arabic churches, and the Jews call him Allah in the Arabic mosques. So, it's one God. We've got people that are wrong within these monotheistic religions. They're wrong about God. They're wrong about all kinds of stuff. And a lot of those errors are reported in holy books. And in my view, because I'm a Christian, the only holy books are the 73 books of the holy canon of Scripture. So, we need to proceed in an orderly fashion. Step one, you have to be a monotheist. Step two, you need to look at the history of monotheistic movements. What did the Jews teach? What did the Jews teach today?
Why does it matter? What if they're all wrong?
Well, you could choose to be a generic monotheist and just worship God on your own at home. Does that make sense to you?
Why
Does
would
that
a
make sense to you?
maximally great being care for worship in the first place?
Because that's our way of fulfilling ourselves and avoiding the torments of hell, is to go toward the light, go toward the truth, go toward
Why
justice,
would
go
a
toward peace.
maximally great being send someone to hell for not worshiping him?
He doesn't send people. He allows people, out of his mercy, to go away from him. They hate him, so they go away from him. It would be worse for those in hell. It would be worse for them if they had to go to heaven and be closer to God. This is the mercy of God. So he allows them, out of his mercy, to go to hell. But we're getting into very advanced topics here that are just going to bewilder you. But if you want to know that God is good and that this first cause, this uncaused first cause, is all good, then you need to understand that your judgments of how you're interpreting the Bible and how you're judging God to be jealous and angry and all these sorts of things, those judgments are wrong because they're misguided, because you don't put yourself under the authority of God, under the authority of God's church. So you're prone to error. You admit that you're fallible and that your interpretations of every book are fallible. So your judgments are wrong, or at least prone to error. You might get lucky and have some lucky guesses and have some lucky judgments. But the basic bottom line is that you should never worship and adore as a god anything that is in any way inferior to you, number one, or imperfect in any way, right? And when I say imperfect in any way, I mean those pure perfections that it's better to have than to not have. Because a circle is perfect, but guess what? God is not a circle, because it's not better to be a circle than to not be a circle. So that's why we talk about the pure perfections of God, that than which nothing greater can be conceived, and those perfections that is better to have than to not have.
Yeah, I just completely disagree.
Sure. You're free to disagree, but I mean, it's very simple. I'm not arguing with you that no, slavery is good and rape is good and incest is good. I'm not going to argue that.
I'm glad.
I hated the Bible and I hated Christianity when I was an atheist. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. You have no idea where I'm coming from, right? Who's in the superior position in terms of experience, breadth of experience? I've been where you are. You've never been where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Who is in the position of strength and superiority when it comes to practical experience? Take a
Probably
guess.
you.
Take a guess. Yes. So it doesn't mean I can't be wrong. I admit that I might be wrong. I might belong to a false religion. Why do I say that? Because I have faith. I have faith in Jesus Christ. I have faith in the incarnation. I have faith in the redemption. I have faith in the church. But I don't have only merely faith in God Almighty, the uncaused first cause. I have certainty, logical, rational certainty. And until you have that, these conversations are going to be a little bit silly and fruitless, right? But it's still good for us to talk about, because ideas will be stirred up in you and you'll go away and think about it. And if any listeners, I don't have a lot of listeners, but if any of them are sort of dabbling with these ideas, it might just nudge them in the right direction here or there. So it's always good to talk about God, even if you're an atheist. I'm living proof of that. I was talking about God as an enemy of God for 25 years.
Have you ever heard of Gasking's proof?
No.
Okay, it seems to be the reverse of the ontological argument to kind of demonstrate its falsehood. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, the creation of the universe is the greatest achievement imaginable. I think that's reasonable. Okay, at least from the perspective of someone in the universe. Like, I can't imagine anything. All right. Why?
I disagree. As a Christian, we are taught explicitly that, first of all, it's a dogma of the church that although the world is ontologically good, this world that God created, it is not the best world. He could have made a better world. Okay, so that's first. That's the first point.
Okay.
That's the first point. The second point is we were taught in our Christian faith that one sinner or one atheist converting to God, where he didn't know God, he didn't love God, he didn't want to serve God, that conversion from that state, being destined for eternal damnation, that conversion from that state to the state where you want to know, love, and serve God in this world so that you can be happy with him forever in the next life, and that you love God for God's sake and you love neighbor for God's sake. That conversion is more wonderful than all of creation and all the history of creation and the very act of creation by the triune God. So that is false, that you would want to say that a believer takes the creation of the universe as the ultimate miracle or the greatest accomplishment or anything like that. It's just false. Okay.
All right. I mean, I don't necessarily agree, but that's fine. Yeah.
What
so
would it
another.
mean? Just a moment now. Just a moment. You keep saying I don't agree with you, but you just need to pause and think about what would it mean practically if I agreed with David Ross about his Catholic worldview. What would that mean? It would mean that you are a Roman Catholic. Okay, so
I do agree, but I also can't just, like, if I, like last time, right? I did not have any refutation for the ontological argument. I now have 5 or 6 written down.
Okay.
So, like, for example, last time, if I just took that at face value, I would, like, be a Roman Catholic. Then an hour later, I wouldn't. And then I would come back and I would be a Roman Catholic. Like, you can't expect me
No,
to
I
just,
don't.
like, change on a whim.
Of course. That's not my point. My point is that we need to both understand that the other person is sincere in their beliefs, and you do, trust me, you do have many beliefs based on many assumptions. Some of those assumptions, I think a small proportion, some of those assumptions that you make are conscious choices that you're aware of. A lot of them are not. Okay.
I don't know if I have any assumptions.
Okay, so you test everything empirically, like you never make any assumptions about any of your beliefs?
So the 3 things that you might say, for example, that I assume are the laws of logic, but those have been in, so it's like beyond that.
That's not an assumption. It's not an assumption.
Okay, cool. So like beyond that, I don't think I assume anything.
Well, you assume that your sense perceptions correspond to reality. We talked about this last time.
I kind of define reality as my sense perceptions, though.
Okay. So
Like, because like what?
you're agnostic about the fact that you might be the one and only necessary being. Okay. Well, I told you.
Well, that's so if let's think about it like this: if the world was created by me, for example, like in my head, I
Right.
am the one and only necessary being. Um, the consciousness that I am operating under right now is not aware of this fact, which means that the consciousness I am operating under right now is effectively separate from the necessary being that created this universe, which means that I didn't.
Okay. So you're admitting that you're not God. Okay.
Well, I'm not necessarily convinced that there is a God. I'm just saying, for example, if we were to imagine that I made the universe and it's all like kind of a construct in my own head, the
Yeah.
part of me that receives that information and thinks is like self-evidently separate from the part of me that didn't do that.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I don't know if you're familiar. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you're familiar with Buddhism and certain interpretations of Hinduism, but or even with dream life in general. I don't know if you've dabbled with lucid dreaming, where you're aware that you're dreaming and you can
oh
control
man,
your actions.
one time I lucid dreamed and I couldn't tell if I was lucid dreaming. So I was like, oh, I'll see if I can wake up. And then I did and I lost it.
Oh.
I was so sad.
But when I was dream journaling, that really helped my lucid dreaming because you just
Mhm.
are hyper aware all day of these wonderful, detailed, rich experiences that you have in the nighttime. So it just brings that connection, that awareness of your dream life more and more to the foreground. So I was having lucid dreams and I could never maintain it because it's just so exciting. It's just so thrilling. I could never, and this is just a question of self control. I lacked self control in many ways. I still do in many ways. But I just lack the self control to remain calm when I realize, oh my God, I'm dreaming and this is amazing. The colors are vibrant and I can fly, I can do all these things. And then I just get too excited and I wake up. But the reason that I'm talking about this is because sometimes well, most of the time, you're not aware that you're dreaming. So that when you wake up, you realize, wow, that was a dream. But while you were dreaming, you were going about your business, maybe at work, at school, maybe you're wearing your pajamas at school, or maybe you're butt naked at school.
Mhm.
Usually, I'm trying to find a toilet in my dreams lately.
Nice.
Uh, so, and all the toilets are overflowing and disgusting, and I can't use this one. Okay, I can't use that one. I can't use that one. Just a constant nightmare of trying to find toilets. Luckily, I haven't had that one recently, but that was one that used to haunt me. But my point is that you are just going about your business, or trying to, in this dream world, and you don't think that you created it. You don't think it's a figment of your imagination and that it's just a construct. You're just going about your business. And then you wake up and then you realize, oh, I was dreaming. That was a dream. It's the same thing when you die in this real world. When you die, you'll be like, oh, God is real and I was, a sinner and now I'm on my way to hell. Unless by some miracle you accept the graces that God gives you and you convert before your death. I'm hoping that's what happens. But a lot of people don't and they end up burning in hell for all eternity. Why? Because it's better than being in heaven, right? It's better for that person than it would be to be in heaven, as I said before.
Okay. Um, this is an interesting idea.
Well, my main point, the reason I'm talking about that is not to talk about heaven and hell.
Yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
main
So,
point is to
I know
talk
what you
about
mean.
my main point was that
Like you
we don't
can,
know when we are living in a construct of our mind. We don't know that
right,
usually.
but yeah, obviously, if you lucid dream, you can. But the point, I think that kind of demonstrates my point, though, because the part of your consciousness that has created the dream world when you're dreaming and the part of your consciousness that is experiencing it are fundamentally separate. Now you can imagine you connect them and that's how you lucid dream. I'm not even sure that would be possible in real life if I did create this all as a construct of my own mind and I am the only incontingent being. But I guess it doesn't. I think that kind of proves my point that if I created this universe. At the end of the day, I am experiencing it. I cannot know whether or not I created it. So it's irrelevant to even consider the fact that I could have created it, because I, as I know myself, am separate from the I that created it.
Well,
Like I
I
have
mean, yeah, go ahead.
you go on.
I was just going to say, I was just sort of half listening to you. I apologize. I was sort of
That's
half
fine.
listening because I was sort of going off in my mind into my own construct, ironically. But I was just
Nice.
thinking. I was just thinking about those. I was just thinking about those times where you misappropriate being your own being. Like, I mean, I was one time very confused about which hand my finger belonged to, like, because my fingers were intertwined, and I was like,
Oh,
what
right. Yeah.
what is going on? I was just really confused, and it put me into a little bit of a panic. And there are other times where you see a reflection of yourself and you don't realize it's you. You know, there are different ways that you can be unaware of yourself. You can see yourself on video, for example, and be like, who's that moron? And then it's like, oh, that's me. So these things have happened to me. Okay, these things have happened to me. I've experienced with them. So there's an idea that we could be wrong about our own being, and we could be unconscious or unaware of certain tics or habits that we have. Like, I'm on YouTube, I stream, and I have videos of myself, and it's like, oh my god, I didn't know I looked like that. I didn't know I acted like that. I didn't know I talked like
Yeah,
that.
that's
You know.
primary reason. That's reason number 2 why I don't have a webcam. First one is security. Second one is embarrassment.
Yeah. Are you okay with the sound of your own voice? Are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, for the most part. It depends. My voice fluctuates a lot. Sometimes it's like a lot deeper than I thought, and sometimes it's like the same pitch. So
Okay, and then there's that ambiguous wandering accent that you have,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's pretty strange. Especially like it's weird to listen to.
And if you think about it, it might bring it one way or the other.
Yeah. Context often changes it in sometimes what you might consider like more formal settings. It's more
Ah,
American, and
really?
when with the boys, it's all Australian.
Ah, well, you have British roots too, right? You lived in England?
Yeah. No, I didn't, but my parents and 3 of my siblings.
Okay, okay, okay. So
I was the only one born here.
you didn't get the snobby Queen's English accent?
Tea. No, I didn't, but I do love tea. That's my English roots for you.
Can you are you able to give me your best rendition of a Kiwi accent, please? I love it.
Oh no, okay. What does a Kiwi accent even sound like?
You don't know?
I know what it sounds like, but it's like hard to do for me.
Okay, I'll give you
Um,
a hint. Okay, this is what I've learned and what I love about it is so soft. And I used to not like it, but now I've been watching some Kiwi stuff. And
do you?
the
Yeah, go
keyword,
on.
the key vowels that you switch, it's very easy to do
Doesn't
this.
it like something becomes like a e? What is it like?
I becomes E, and
Yeah, I becomes a. That's
E
it.
becomes I. So I would say that the baseball pitched the ball, but they would say pitched
Yeah,
the ball. Okay,
that's so funny.
and then I would say my dog fetched the stick, but they say fitch. My dog fitched the stick.
There was this great Kiwi ad. I don't know if it was intentional, but it was about like spraying your deck. But then obviously it switches.
Spray your dick.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Have you heard? Do you pronounce them? Do you call them eskies or something like the ice boxes where you put like drinks in?
Uh, are you talking about a thermos like that keeps things cool
No. Yes, technically it would be a thermos, but it's like a massive box, and like sometimes it's on wheels, and you can like bring it to a party.
with full of
I
beer
guess
and
it's
stuff?
pretty cold in Canada most of the time, right? So,
Just
um,
stick it in the snow.
yeah. Um, so we call them eskies. They call them like chili bins.
Okay.
It's like but pronounced really weirdly. Everyone in Australia hates the fact that they call them chili bins.
Chili bends.
Yeah,
Chili bend. They would
but
say
with like the weird accent, so it's like chili bun.
chili bend.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they seem like annoyingly gentle and nice people, like just annoying, like have a
like
backbone.
Canadians.
Yeah, like just be get some edge. Please, for the love of God, get some edge.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yep. Sometimes I know a couple Kiwis. They're very nice.
Yeah. Oh well, of course. That's what we're exactly what we're talking about. That's what
Yeah.
we're critiquing them for being so nice, just like Canadians. But I've got a little bit of edge. I've got more edge than I ever have had because I married a Greek, and she's gruff and rough, and she'll swear like a sailor, and she'll punch you out if you say the wrong thing. So
Yeah, Australians swear all the time. I've kind of gotten to the point where I've got like two modes in my head. One for family and work, which is like I don't swear like now, and then with the boys, it's just like it's difficult to go a sentence without swearing.
is
Just
the
'cause it's like,
F word a popular one?
oh yeah, all of them
Okay.
except the N word.
Oh,
All of
okay.
them except the N word.
Okay. Okay. The what were we talking about here? Oh yeah, yeah. My wife downloaded a show called Outback Truckers or Outback Truckies or
I've
something like
heard of
that.
it. To
Have you
be
heard about it?
honest,
It's about trucking.
I do not like much Australian TV.
Okay. Well, we enjoyed it because it was like very dramatic and scary and dangerous, like the way your roads that go through some of the backwoods or back desert or whatever it's called,
Hmm.
they get
The Outback.
corrugated. They get the outback, yeah. They get corrugated just naturally over time, so it's just like as bumpy as hell,
Yep.
and it just shakes these vehicles and their cargo apart. And I just like my palms are sweating watching this stuff. It's just so nerve wracking. And then they enter a bog, and this dirt road gives out, and this
Yeah.
$200,000 worth of equipment is tilting over, and it's nerve wracking. But my point here is that the Aussies are people with grit, determination. They're a tough, rough people, I think. And I don't think they take much guff.
That's
And
probably
they'll stand up
fair.
for themselves. They'll stand up for themselves, I think. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously there's kind of like, well, I would say on the whole, we are more likely to do that than other cultural groups.
Yeah.
But like obviously you've still got a large minority of, for lack of a better word, bitches.
Okay.
Like people who like almost like pacifists, right?
Pushovers.
Where
Pushovers.
yeah, doormats.
Oh, okay.
And then like, but it's like kind of like the rest of us just kind of like stand up for them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
You have to protect the vulnerable. And anyway, they made the journey all the way from New Zealand. You have to treat them nicely.
Yep, they're the only weak ones. It's
I'm
all
kidding.
the
I'm kidding. I'm
Kiwis.
kidding. I shouldn't bash them because they are really nice, lovely people, and I'd
Yeah, they
probably,
are.
they probably make a better roommate than an Aussie. But just because you never hear them, and they
That's true.
put everything back on the shelf, and they wouldn't have three mugs on the table like you do.
Look, that's just me, I swear, and it's four.
Okay.
Um,
So listen, I
yeah.
do have to wrap it up here. It's been great chatting with you once again. We're going to go deeper next time, but I think the next time I'll have you on will probably be with Kieran on September 11th. If that comes together, I hope it does.
Yeah, sure,
And
that sounds great.
we'll go deeper with other questions the next time you and I talk. I mean, it could be between now and then, but we'll see. We'll see how our schedules work out.
Mhm.
But thank you so much. Always nice talking to you. You're a bright young man, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
Well, you're also, pretty well read, very intelligent.
thank you.
I'm a
Thank
bit
you very
out of
much.
my depth here, but hopefully that changes.
Yeah, well, you got all the time ahead of you, I hope. I mean, God willing, you got a long and fruitful life ahead of you. Have you got a career path in mind?
I'm not sure either. Look, the military just seems fun.
Yeah.
So does cybersecurity, which
Oh,
are pretty like polar opposite.
yeah.
Probably one of the two. I'm very good with computers.
Ah,
So yeah,
that's cool. A lot of work. You could do both, you could do both. Mix the two together.
yeah, maybe.
That would be cool.
I might do a gap year in the military and then see how that goes.
There's no commitment, like you can do a temporary commitment?
Yeah, so do you know what a gap year is?
No.
Okay, so a gap year is in Australia like the year between the year between finishing high school
Okay.
and then going into uni. So you can basically go in and they'll like train you for a year And if you like it, you can stay. And if you don't, you can just leave.
Cool. Very cool.
Yep.
All right, my friends. So we'll talk soon. Take care of yourself and have a good Sunday.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.